Yo, here we are in the second video of the Whiteboard series. I'm Jay, your Water Pig Master Teacher 33. I'm here to do my little donkey series. No, but seriously, we have the EDF car only, or jet-powered car only in blue, versus the four-wheel drive versus jet-powered car in red, and the four-wheel drive car, typical wheel-driven car in green. And this is just going to be like a 2-mile drag race, flat ground, dry surfaces, good Florida, California weather, or something like that. And so all three cars line up on the starting line, get ready to go. Tree lights up, drops, they go. For the start of the race, the four-wheel drive car is going to be in the lead due to a couple of reasons. It has a really good power to weight ratio, but more importantly, off of the line, it can utilize all of its power, or it can utilize a lot of its power through traction and putting the power to the ground. It can jump off the line really fast, like a dragster versus a jet dragster. It just takes off faster. The drag car alone will be in last place because it only has thrust, and the mix of the cars will be in the middle because it has that traction bite to help get it out ahead of the EDF only car, but it is being held back by the extra weight of the EDF or the jet, so it's not as fast as the four-wheel drive car at the beginning part of the race. Now at the middle part of the race, certain factors begin to equal out, and I believe, you guys can comment, I believe all three cars would begin to be about even at the mile marker. Okay, and so you have to take into account, well, how are these cars powered? Well, if you want to talk gas terms, you could say the four-wheel drive car has 1,000 horsepower, and my EDF or jet powered plus engine car would have 1,000 horsepower to the wheels also, but it also would have maybe 2,000 pounds of thrust coming out of its jet engine, and the EDF only car would have something like 4,000 pounds of thrust or 5,000 pounds of thrust only in this kind of scenario. So when you play with the numbers, of course, everything's going to change. If you give your four-wheel drive car 1 horsepower, of course it's going to lose. Or if you had super low thrust amounts on your EDF, of course you're going to lose. But I'm trying to give everything somewhat of a fair chance, and I think with this having 1,000 horsepower to the wheels, this having 1,000 horsepower plus a 1,000 to 2,000 pounds of thrust, plus more thrust, say just 4,000, 5,000 pounds of thrust or something like that, would equal, you still would have this going on in the start of the race, but by the middle of the race, your thrust here would be accelerating you to catch up with all these other things that are equaling out. But by the end of the race, it's a little more complicated, but I believe your thrust is going to get you slightly ahead of your thrust and wheel driven car, because that's going to be held back by the mere weight of the engine to drive the wheels and the drivetrain in it. But it's like, well, what do you mean holding it back? Those wheels are what got it ahead in the start. Well, yeah, but that force is starting to have more of a diminishing return the faster you go. Okay, and so that's why the four-wheel drive car at the end of the race is in last place here. Okay, and basically, let's get the iPad out of here. It comes down to this down here at the bottom here. Your four-wheel drive on the graph, basically, from the start, you have maximum usable horsepower. And so you can launch off the line really quick and get ahead of everybody else. But as you go faster and faster, more friction, more air resistance, then you just begin to go slower and slower. Your usable power becomes less and less. So like 20 to 40 miles per hour in your car, you probably accelerate really fast. But from 120 to 140, you're accelerating a lot slower. And that's that diminishing kind of return I'm talking about. And in the EDF car, it would have that same exact wheel curve for the wheel curve in black, but it would have this bonus curve of the thrust coming on and basically staying stable. And that's how the EDF only and the EDF or thrust part behaves on these two last cars. From the start, it has to be at 0 because you can't even be holding your brakes and going to over thrust, because you're just going to push your car over the line no matter how hard you're pressing on your brakes. So you have to keep your thrust down relatively low, and then at the start of the race you can crank it up to maximum, and then at that maximum your traction basically is you're pulling yourself through the air. And so at maximum RPM of that jet, you're going to be creating maximum thrust, which is going to stay the same the whole time. So it isn't going to have that diminishing return until you start to get into really high miles per hour, and the exit velocity of the air coming out of your jet or EDF is kind of not so much faster than the speed you're going. So eventually you do have a falling off and diminishing return on your EDF or jet, right? Jets won't take you to light speed or something like that. So that's basically kind of my theories on why the four-wheel drive EDF car and the EDF car will begin to catch up, because the EDF car will just gain speed. I know that line is staying the same, but that is your force of acceleration. So you're just accelerating. Here you have the same in red to try to accelerate you, but the weight of the four-wheel drive system holds you back a little more. But the weight of that four-wheel drive system at the start of the race is what gets you ahead. And with the wheel-driven car, it's those factors just with the four-wheel drive alone. So you have the great start off the line and not the weight of the extra jet and EDF, so you pull ahead of those cars, but you have a diminishing return. And this also kind of comes into a play as you're going up steeper and steeper inclines. Or if the surface is slippery or ice, we'd have a completely different situation, but maybe that's for another video. So yeah, that's part 2, and peace.